So we've got a pretty hefty stack here of excerpts from the Tibetan book of Living and Dying for this deep dive. And I'm actually pretty excited about this one.
Yeah, me too.
This book seems to offer like some really profound wisdom on facing life and death. And it's all rooted in Buddhist teachings. But, you know, what's interesting is I think even if you're not a Buddhist,
yeah, absolutely,
there's a lot here.
A lot of universal stuff.
That people can relate to.
Human experience.
Yeah. So for this deep dive, let's try not to just skim the surface here.
Okay.
Let's really pull out those golden nuggets of wisdom that you might find most applicable to your own life.
Let's do it.
Okay. So maybe we can start with how the book tackles this very human tendency we all have to avoid thinking about death.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You know, it's like everyone knows it's the one certainty in life.
Right.
But we push it so far out of our minds.
Right.
Why is that?
The book, I think, really digs into this.
Okay.
And it points to, I mean, just fear of the unknown, the feeling that everything we know will be disrupted.
Right.
And the author actually uses this really powerful analogy.
Okay.
He says, imagine waking up alone in a foreign country. No money, no contacts, no clue where you are.
Oh, wow.
It's that sense of disorientation and panic that we tend to project onto death.
I get that.
You know?
That's a powerful analogy.
Yeah, it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Where am I?
Yeah. No wonder we shy away from the topic.
Totally.
But is there a danger in that avoidance?
I think the book argues that there is, and it introduces this concept of active laziness.
Okay.
Which I find...
Active laziness.
Yeah.
I've never heard that term before.
It's a great one, right?
What does that even mean?
I think it's this idea that we distract ourselves from life's big questions, death included, by keeping ourselves insanely busy. We cram our schedules with endless activities, but avoid genuine engagement with the deeper aspects of life. You know, we're active on the surface, but fundamentally lazy when it comes to inner reflection.
So we're almost like hamsters running on a wheel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lots of activity.
Not really going anywhere meaningful.
Going anywhere.
Right. Yeah. Just spinning our wheels.
Yeah. And the book suggests that this busyness prevents us from asking ourselves. A crucial question. What have I achieved in my life? I can see how that question would get lost in the hustle and bustle.
Lost in the shuffle.
Yeah. But wait, when the book talks about achievement, it's not just about material success, right?
No, it's not.
It's about
just pushing us
to consider what true achievement means.
Right.
You know, it's less about, I don't know, external markers of success.
And more about understanding the nature of life and death. And, you know, achieving a deeper understanding of ourselves and our place in the universe.
So it's less about climbing the corporate ladder and more about internal growth and wisdom?
Yes, exactly. And I think to explore this further, the author brings up some really interesting research on near-death experiences. Specifically what's called the panoramic life review.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about that.
You've heard of that?
That's where people who've had near-death experiences describe seeing their entire lives flash before their eyes.
Exactly.
But what does that have to do with achievement?
Well, so the book highlights how these accounts often focus on, you know, love, knowledge gained, and the impacts we've had on others. It's not about the material possessions, but rather the quality of our relationships, the wisdom we've acquired, and the difference we've made.
Yeah, it makes you think, doesn't it?
It does make you think.
Like thinking about what would stand out.
In your own life review.
In your own life review.
Right.
Is a powerful exercise.
It is.
It really shifts your perspective on what truly matters.
On what matters, yeah. And I think that focus on what truly matters kind of beautifully segues into the next section of the book, which delves into the nature of the mind itself.
Right.
So are you ready to explore that?
Yeah, let's dive into that.
Okay.
The nature of the mind.
Yeah.
That sounds intriguing. It's a little daunting.
It is a little bit.
Where do we even begin with that?
Well, the book starts by, I think, shaking up some of our usual assumptions about what the mind actually is. You know, the author shares his own experience of realizing that there isn't a solid, tangible thing we can point to and say, that's my mind.
So it's not like a physical organ in the brain? Or
Exactly. It's not like you can dissect it and find it.
Right.
He describes it almost like this funny aha moment, as if everyone else knew this secret and he was the last one to figure it out.
I think we've all had those moments where we feel like we're the only ones not in on the joke.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
And then the book introduces this concept called Rigpa.
Yes.
Which it describes as the unchanging, pure awareness at the core of our being.
Right.
Okay, Rigpa. I'm trying to wrap my head around that.
Yeah.
But how does that fit with all the thoughts and emotions that are constantly buzzing around in our heads? Those seem pretty real.
That's a great question.
And ever-changing.
Yeah, so the book addresses that.
Yeah.
I like to think of it like this.
Okay.
Imagine a clear blue sky.
Okay.
That vastness represents
Rigpa.
that pure awareness.
Okay.
But then clouds come along.
Okay.
Those are our thoughts.
Okay.
Our worries, our joys, those fleeting emotions.
So Rigpa is like the sky itself.
Yes.
Always there.
Always there.
Even when it's obscured by the clouds of our thoughts.
Exactly.
Right.
The book emphasizes that Rigpa is always present.
Okay.
Even when we're not consciously aware of it.
Okay.
It's like this deep wellspring of peace and clarity that we can learn to tap into.
Okay. That's a beautiful image. But if this Rigpa is always there, why is it so hard to experience?
Right.
I don't know about you, but my mind feels more like a whirlwind than a tranquil sky most of the time.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Right.
And the book actually lays out what he calls the 4 faults.
Okay.
Which explain why it's so challenging to grasp the nature of mind.
Okay, 4 faults. That sounds a bit ominous.
Yeah, it does sound a little bit.
Am I doing something wrong?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I think they're not so much faults as they are just inherent challenges that we encounter when trying to understand this.
Okay.
So the first is that it's simply too simple.
Too simple.
Yeah, we tend to overcomplicate things, especially when it comes to matters of the mind and spirit.
Okay.
So we might dismiss the simplicity of Rigpa.
Right.
Because it seems too easy.
Right.
Too good to be true.
So we're almost looking for something complex when the answer could be right in front of us, just like that clear sky.
Exactly.
Okay.
The second fault is that it's too vast.
Okay.
Our minds like to grasp onto things you can define and categorize.
Right.
But Rigpa is boundless.
Right.
It's like trying to measure infinity.
So it's both too simple and too vast.
Yeah.
What are the other 2 faults?
Well, the third is that it's too easy to believe without truly understanding.
Okay.
It's one thing to read about Rigpa. It's another to directly experience it.
It's like reading a recipe for a delicious cake versus actually tasting it.
Perfect analogy.
You might believe the recipe works.
Yes.
But you don't really know until you experience it.
Exactly.
Right.
And the final fault is that it's simply too wonderful for us to fully comprehend. The sheer brilliance and joy of Rigpa can be overwhelming.
Okay.
So we might subconsciously shy away from it.
So it's almost like we're not quite ready for such an experience.
In a way, yes. And the book makes the point that all of these challenges are amplified by the way we live in the modern world. You know, we're constantly bombarded with information, distractions, and sensory experiences.
It's like our minds are on overdrive all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that makes it even harder to connect with the stillness and silence of Rigpa, which requires a different kind of attention.
So given all of that, how do we even begin to overcome these challenges?
Right.
Is there a way to cultivate that awareness and connect with Rigpa?
Well, the book offers some guidance on that.
Okay.
And a lot of it has to do with meditation.
Okay.
It's a central theme in the book.
Okay.
And the author really emphasizes its importance for accessing that deeper awareness.
That makes sense. You know, it's all about calming the mind, finding that inner stillness. But there are so many different techniques.
Right.
What specific types of meditation does the book recommend?
Well, the book highlights 3 main approaches.
Okay.
Focusing on an object.
Okay.
Mantra recitation.
Okay.
And breath awareness.
So focusing on an object, that's like concentrating on a candle flame or a flower.
Exactly. Or it could be any image or object that inspires you.
Right.
The point is to choose something external to anchor your attention.
Right.
Which helps to train your mind to focus.
And mantra recitation involves repeating a specific sound or phrase, right?
Yeah.
I've definitely heard of that, but I've never tried it.
It's a powerful practice.
Okay.
Mantras can have different meanings and purposes.
Okay.
But the repetition helps to quiet the mind
and
create a sense of inner peace.
And lastly, breath awareness.
Yes.
I've definitely dabbled in that one.
Yeah.
It's all about paying attention to the breath.
Exactly.
As it flows in and out of the body.
Yeah, very grounding practice. And what's fascinating is the book actually tells a story about a monk named Shrona who was having a tough time with meditation. He was struggling to find the right balance between effort and relaxation.
Oh, I can relate to that.
Yeah.
I've definitely had those moments where I'm trying so hard to meditate that I just end up more tense.
Totally.
Right?
Well, in the story, the Buddha helps Shrona by using the analogy of the veena, which is a type of stringed instrument.
A musical instrument?
Yeah.
How does that relate to meditation?
So the Buddha explained that if the strings on the veena are too loose, they won't produce any sound.
Right.
But if they're too tight, they'll snap. He said meditation is the same. You need the right balance of effort and relaxation to find that sweet spot of awareness.
That's such a great image.
Yeah.
I'll definitely keep that in mind next time I'm meditating.
Yeah, I love that analogy.
But what about dealing with difficult emotions? Right. Sometimes it feels like my mind is just flooded with anxiety or frustration, and it's hard to find any sense of stillness, let alone access this deeper awareness we've been talking about.
Well, the book doesn't shy away from that. It actually acknowledges the reality of difficult emotions. And offers guidance on how to work with them. It emphasizes the importance of observing those thoughts and emotions without judgment, letting them rise and fall like waves in the ocean.
So we don't try to suppress them or push them away.
Exactly.
But we also don't get completely swept away by them.
Yeah, you find that middle path.
Right.
You know, it's about cultivating a sense of spaciousness in the mind.
Okay.
So we can allow those feelings to come and go without dictating our experience.
That sounds incredibly challenging.
It is.
Especially when you're in the midst of those really intense emotions.
It is. It takes practice.
Right.
But the book offers this really intriguing idea.
Okay.
It suggests that even difficult experiences like loss, grief, or even just transitions in life can create these unexpected moments of peace.
Moments of peace in the midst of difficulty.
Yes.
How does that work?
The book calls them gaps.
Okay.
These are those times when our usual mental chatter subsides and we catch a glimpse of the true nature of mind, and that peace and clarity that's always there beneath the surface.
It's like those moments after a storm when the clouds part and the sun peeks through.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And the book suggests that by paying attention to these gaps and learning to rest in them, we can start to access that peace and clarity more readily, even amidst the ups and downs of life.
Even in the chaos.
This is all so fascinating, and I feel like we're just scratching the surface.
We are.
The book covers so much ground, and we haven't even touched upon things like rebirth.
I know.
Karma or the bardos.
Big topics.
Yeah, those are some pretty big.
We haven't even gotten to the good stuff yet.
I know.
Right.
Are you ready to explore those next?
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's dive into these big concepts, rebirth, karma, and the bardos. I have to admit, I'm really curious about these, but also a bit intimidated. Where do we even begin?
Well, the book kicks off this section by talking about something pretty remarkable, the Buddha's ability to recall his past lives.
Wait, so he actually remembered being other people before he was the Buddha?
That's what the ancient texts say. And the book goes on to present a few modern cases that suggest reincarnation might be more than just a concept. There's the case of Arthur Flowerdew, who had these incredibly vivid memories of a past life in the ancient city of Petra.
Wow, Petra, like the lost city in Jordan. What kind of memories did he have?
He had detailed knowledge about the city's layout, even pinpointing specific locations and structures that hadn't been fully understood by archaeologists at the time. And then the book mentions another case, Kamaljit Kaur, a young girl who claimed to be the reincarnation of a teenager named Rishma.
So she was remembering an entire other life. What kind of details did she recall?
She remembered specific details about Rishma's family, the village she lived in, and even the accident that led to her death. She was even able to lead her family to the village and the house where Rishma had lived, and everything matched up.
That's incredible. It definitely makes you wonder, but what about karma? I always thought of it as this kind of cosmic justice system, like if you do bad things, you get punished, and if you do good things, you get rewarded.
Yeah, that's a common misconception.
Yeah.
The book really emphasizes that karma is not about predetermined fate or some kind of divine punishment and reward system. It's more about understanding the natural consequences of our actions. It's about cause and effect, but with an emphasis on our own agency and ability to change.
So it's not about being punished or rewarded by some external force, but rather understanding that our actions create ripples that shape our experiences.
Exactly. Think of it like throwing a pebble into a pond. The ripple effect is a natural consequence of that action. In the same way, our actions, words, and even thoughts create ripples that shape our lives and the lives of those around us.
That makes sense. So if karma is not about fate, does that mean we can change our karma?
Absolutely. The book is very clear about that. It says that we're not powerless. We have the ability to shift our karma by changing our behaviors and intentions. It's not about dwelling on past mistakes, but understanding the impact of our actions and making conscious choices moving forward.
That's actually quite empowering. It means we have more control over our lives than we might think. But the book also talks about the bardos, right?
Yeah.
What are those exactly?
The bardos are often misunderstood. People tend to think they only relate to what happens after we die. But the book explains that they are actually states of consciousness that we experience throughout life.
So it's not just about what happens after death, but rather about different states of awareness that we move through all the time.
Yes. The book even uses the analogy of sleep and dreams to illustrate this. We transition through different states of consciousness even while we're alive. And these transitions are like mini bardos.
So we're moving through bardos all the time without even realizing it. What are some examples of these different states of consciousness?
Well, think about the shift from waking to sleeping or from dreaming to waking. Those are transitions between different states of awareness, and each state has its own unique qualities and possibilities. The book describes several different bardos, but one that stands out is the bardo of Dharmata.
The bardo of Dharmata, that's a new one. What is that all about?
Dharmata essentially refers to the true nature of reality, and this particular bardo is described as a state of pure luminosity, a kind of radiant awareness that transcends our ordinary perceptions.
That sounds pretty profound. Does everyone experience this?
The book suggests that we all experience the bardo of Dharmata, but very few of us recognize it for what it is. It's like catching a fleeting glimpse of something incredibly beautiful and then instantly forgetting what you saw. It's there, but we're usually not attuned to it.
That's both encouraging and a little frustrating. But it makes me wonder if there are ways to become more aware of these subtle states of consciousness to really recognize and appreciate them when they arise.
It's a great question, and I think that's what the book is ultimately guiding us toward, a deeper understanding of ourselves, our minds, and the nature of reality. It's not just about death, but about living more fully and consciously. And speaking of living, the book also offers some really valuable insights into how to help those who are dying.
That's a topic that a lot of people find difficult to talk about. What kind of guidance does the book offer?
Well, one of the key messages is the importance of honesty and open communication with those who are dying. It even tells a story about a couple, the Murphys, who found peace and comfort by facing death head-on and openly processing their emotions together.
So instead of avoiding the topic, we should create space for honest and compassionate conversations about death.
Exactly. The book suggests that by acknowledging the reality of death, we can actually help those who are dying to find greater peace and acceptance. And it also encourages us to create a peaceful and supportive environment for them, minimizing disturbances and focusing on their comfort and well-being.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about prioritizing their needs and wishes rather than clinging to life at all costs.
Right. And alongside that, the book emphasizes the power of compassion, not just for the dying, but for everyone.
Compassion. How does that come into play, especially when dealing with death and dying?
The book actually presents compassion as a profound source of healing and protection, not just emotionally, but even physically. It tells the story of Geshe Chekawa, a Tibetan Buddhist teacher who taught a practice called Tonglen.
Tonglen, another new term for me. What's that all about?
Tonglen is a meditation practice where you visualize taking in the suffering of others and breathing out happiness and well-being.
So you intentionally take on the suffering of others. That sounds kind of counterintuitive.
I know it might seem strange at first, but the book explains that by cultivating compassion in this way, we can actually help to lessen suffering in the world and even heal ourselves in the process. And there's this amazing anecdote about Geshe Chekawa teaching Tonglen to lepers who were unable to be cured by traditional medicine.
And what happened? Were they cured?
Many of them were. Even Geshe Chekawa's own brother, who was initially skeptical of the practice, was transformed by witnessing the effects of Tonglen on the lepers.
Wow. That's truly remarkable. It speaks to the transformative power of compassion, not just for ourselves, but for others as well. But there's one more big concept we haven't talked about yet, Dzogchen.
Yes, Dzogchen, which translates to great perfection, is considered the pinnacle of Tibetan Buddhist teachings.
Great perfection. That sounds pretty lofty. What does it even mean?
It's not so much about achieving something as it is about recognizing a state of awareness that is already present within us. The book explains that this great perfection is not something we need to create or strive for, but rather something we uncover, something that's always been there.
So it's already within us. That's a pretty radical idea.
It is. It's like we're already perfect, already whole, but we just don't realize it. Dzogchen teachings aim to help us recognize this inherent perfection and live from that place of awareness, that place of wholeness.
Wow, this entire book is filled with so much wisdom. It's really making me think about life, death, and everything in between in a whole new light.
It's an incredible book, isn't it? It offers so much to contemplate.
It does, and it brings up so many questions. If everything is impermanent, as the book suggests, how does that change the way we approach our goals, our relationships, or even just our everyday experiences? What does it mean to live a truly meaningful life, knowing that everything is constantly changing?
Those are great questions to reflect on, and I think that's the beauty of the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. It doesn't provide all the answers, but it offers a framework for exploring these big questions, for deepening our understanding of ourselves and the universe we inhabit.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. It's been a truly enriching journey.
The pleasure was all mine.